Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. The regular assembly meeting, April 20th, 2020. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bob?
Present.
Brandy?
Here.
Jay?
Here.
Taylor?
Here.
Jeff?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Chelsea?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Thompson. We have a full assembly calling on this evening. It's now time for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that brings us to approval of minutes. There are no minutes on the agenda this evening to approve. So that moves us to item 4, amendment and approval of this evening's meeting agenda.
Mr. Mayor, Bob Lynn, I move to approve the agenda.
I would entertain a motion to add under discussion. I can't make a motion. I entertain a motion to add under discussion. Maybe we could put under 17A, move the other two down if we get approval for this, to discuss a special meeting about the state's plans to open up the economy. In a phone call last Friday, the governor was asking for input from communities. So to get that on the agenda, we need a motion to amend. I believe the clerk sent out to the assembly.
I'd make that motion. I'll second that.
Okay, motion been made by Member Tremblay, seconded by Member Moreau, I believe, and to add under discussion items, and let's put it 17A, and then we'll drop the other two down to B and C. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Clerk, call the roll.
Jay?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that amendment to the agenda passes unanimously. If there are no other amendments to tonight's meeting agenda, will the clerk call the roll for the amended agenda?
Chelsea?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes. Okay, thank you. That brings us to item 5, public hearings. There are 2 public hearings this evening. The first one is on ordinance 20-10, an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget to establish a local emergency disaster fund to respond to the COVID-19 outbreak. Excuse me. Is there anyone that would like to participate in this public hearing? Is anybody called in for this particular topic, Debbie? Do you know?
No, it does not look like it.
Okay, so I guess that public hearing is closed. That brings us to the second public hearing this evening, and that public hearing is scheduled for ordinance 2020-11, and this is an ordinance approving, I'll kind of summarize it, to refinance some obligation bonds for the power and light electrical department. And is there anyone that is called in to participate in this public hearing? Do you know it?
No, there is not.
Okay, thank you. So that public hearing is closed as well. Excuse me. That brings us to item 6, bid awards. There are none listed this evening. Now that brings us to item 7, persons to be heard related to items on tonight's agenda. Are there any callers for that, Clerk Thompson?
Yes, it looks like we have one caller, Elizabeth Bacon. Chris, if we could please unmute Ms. Bacon.
Ms. Bacon, your line is now open.
Thank you. Please state your name and who you represent, and you have 5-minute limit on the testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Bacon. I live at 10.13 Mile Mitkoff Highway. I'm an employee of Petersburg Medical Center. I'm the infection preventionist and quality manager. And I wrote a letter to the Assembly late this evening, so I wasn't sure if you received it, and so I would like to read it to you, please. I am in support of a general masking mandate in Petersburg. I understand this is not truly an enforceable mandate. Our police officers have more important things to do than writing tickets for people not wearing masks. I do feel that a mandate elevates the importance of this issue to our community as one small way each individual can prevent the spread of COVID-19 to vulnerable friends, family, and neighbors. A mask serves to minimize the spray of saliva. People standing within 6 feet and surfaces that are frequently touched by many individuals allows the spread of this virus. The symptoms appear after viral shedding begins. That means you're shedding the virus before you know you're sick. It has been well documented in the literature, in cases around the world, in our own state, and even in this community, that the virus is very difficult to fully understand. The more people become infected with COVID-19, the more we learn. From the time the virus first appeared in the United States, in Washington State, the end of January, to now, there have been over 40,000 deaths in the United States alone, and likely 20% or more people died than were counted in this number because the unavailability of diagnostic testing. Likely before the end of this week, we will see more than 50,000 recorded deaths in the United States. A very significant number of healthcare workers have lost their lives because the spread of this disease brought a surge of patients into hospitals in a very short period of time, overwhelming the healthcare supply chains. A lack of personal protective equipment for healthcare workers in these overwhelmed hospitals contributed to their deaths. Yes, wearing a mask is a big inconvenience, certainly. You likely know someone who works at the hospital. You may have been a patient there at one time. Our staff are caring for your friends, your family, and your neighbors. With only 12 beds, there are obvious limitations for caring for a surge of patients. We have a very limited number of nurses and physicians and lab techs. If 10% of Petersburg becomes infected, that calculates to about 300 people. If 20% of these people require hospitalization, that calculates to 60 people. If 10% of those are seriously ill and require higher level of care, that equates to at least 6 people being shipped out to a higher level of care. We do not know for certain if the current active case was community acquired or associated to somebody who traveled. If it is community acquired, just remember, there is someone else out there, perhaps a silent spreader, no symptoms, and probably not masked. Please send the strongest message with the strongest tool you have. Tell your community to stay home. Don't work if you are sick, and pass this ordinance mandating masks. The only Monday morning quarterback I want to hear from is, why did you do all that preparation when nothing serious happened? Not, why didn't you take care of our community when you could before we had so many cases? Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Liz, for your testimony this evening. Clerk Thompson, are there other callers on the line?
There are not.
Okay. I guess that moves us to persons to be heard on items unrelated to today's agenda. If there were any other callers?
I have no other callers.
Okay, well, I guess we just trudge on forward. That brings us to item 9. Possibly, if somebody would like, if someone calls in and shortly we can backtrack just to get everybody's input, but we did receive a lot of emails, so maybe that's how they planned on communicating. Okay, well, item 8, persons to be heard unrelated to the agenda. There are no calls, so we will move forward. Board, commission, and committee reports. There are none this evening. There are no items under item 10, consent agenda. That moves us to reports of other officers. The mayor's report is fairly short this evening. Hold on, bear with me. First of all, the Assembly appreciates the efforts made by Petersburg residents and current visitors to follow state and local mandates and alerts to support necessary, practice social distancing, and wear cloth masks when in public spaces. Together we can limit the spread of the virus in Petersburg. Health officials tell us this is a marathon, not a sprint. So please stay the course until we are advised otherwise. Questions regarding the current mandate may be emailed to our local emergency operations center at eoc@petersburgak.gov. And I just wanted to add a little bit about a phone conversation that the manager and I were involved in, and this will be part of the conversation later. I was with the governor, Commissioner Crum, and Dr. Zink. On the call, there was like 40 people on the teleconference. It was from the board of directors from Alaska Municipal League, the Alaska Conference of Mayors, and some managers from around the state. And during that conversation, the governor stated that he wanted input from local communities on how they felt comfortable with opening up their individual communities. So we will discuss that later. I just wanted to give that little report, and maybe the manager would have something to add under his report, and that is where we are at now, is the manager's report. So Steve, if you're there.
I am, sir. Thank you. Parks and Rec continues to use the facility closure to do work on maintenance issues throughout the various facilities. We've also had staff shift over to helping the incident command team and helping other departments. We had several employees taking the ICS basic training classes online, and we've had a couple of folks who've voluntarily furloughed themselves to, I guess, enjoy the summer. We had nearly 400 people who were participating in the reading rally with the library. Every week, 5 people who read at least 2 hours will be able to choose the business they want to support and win a $100 gift certificate. Thank you to First Bank and the Friends of the Library for sponsoring the program. We're having about 10 to 20 items a day that are requested by the community members for library materials. The library is following strict standards for hygiene and social distancing to meet those needs. Assisted living continues to be in lockdown. No visitors other than essential individuals. Despite this, the staff continues to connect relatives, family, and residents in every way we can, and as often as we can through using FaceTime, texting, etc. A big thank you to all the family and friends of residents who are supportive during this difficult time. Big thank you to the Petersburg Community Foundation for a almost $1,700 grant for assisted living. We thank you to the fire department and to the hospital for helping us get the police officers fit tested for N95 masks, which I believe they are all done at this point and starting to be able to use. We are getting more calls to the police department about people possibly violating mandates and or asking questions about mandates. The officers are trying to keep up on the changing updates and reminding folks when they can about the rules. We've had officers, we've asked them to participate in bail review hearing calls for inmates trying to get released. Department of Corrections has been kind of releasing them and then returning them to Petersburg, and we're not exactly sure their quarantine process. Currently, Lemon Creek, where most of these folks were, has had 4 officers who have tested positive for COVID-19 and a large number of inmates. Everything went very well with the herring fleet that returned this past weekend, and it appeared that everyone complied with the mandates. Tenders are moving through, stopping briefly to refuel and supply before moving north to fish herring near Bristol Bay. The harbor continues to receive many calls regarding quarantine from commercial fishermen and sport fishing, people that are still planning to coming to Petersburg. Alaska DNR, citing concerns and comments received by the department, has withdrawn a proposed regulation to revise the definition of navigable waters for the purpose of state land leases or conveyances. If you remember, this was the thing that was holding up our land conveyance, so hopefully we can get back on track when the state has staff available to work on this. Molly and Liz are both attending incident command meetings and working on components of the team. This includes keeping our information on resources for businesses impacted by COVID-19 up to date. Joe B continues to issue building permits and inspect projects, though sometimes the inspections are photos and videos at this point. Public Works has started on their road maintenance for the year. We did have a problem with the sweeper being down with the hydraulic issue, so we were unable to get all of the sand picked up. We're working on that. Streets personnel have been involved in various aspects of the COVID-19 response, including procurement of supplies and assistance with a couple of construction projects. In addition to maintaining the borough's vehicles, the motor pool has been assisting putting together the hand wash stations that are located throughout town, as well as fabricating support brackets for the temporary patient ward being set up in the high school gym. Sam Jackson has been busy doing building inspections required by our insurer and is also leading the project to construct the partition walls for the temporary patient care ward at the high school gym. Parks and Rec personnel, as I mentioned earlier, have been lending Sam a hand with this project as well. Water Wastewater Department staff doing a very good job keeping water flowing and all the equipment running. Operators are working staggered 4-10 schedules to minimize contact with each other, but yet still do the job that we need them to do. The Casino Street Sewer Project may be delayed by material delivery schedules. Reed Brothers plan to start on May 1st, but it will likely be later in the month. Power and Light staff is working various schedules to minimize contact with each other. The changes are all working well and keeping people from exposing each other. SEPA has an RFP out right now for the replacement of the damaged marine cable. The plan will be to award the contract for the work to be completed in the fall of 2020. I think there was a question from someone about how long we would be on diesel when that cable was being worked on. It's my understanding it will have nothing to do with whether we're on diesel because they're putting a new cable in, so the old one, as long as it's still functioning, will be able to support us. McMillan Jacobs, the Blindsville Hydro Project engineering firm, has advertised for the equipment procurement RFP for the turbine generator and ancillary equipment for the hydro project. The proposal period extends to June to make sure the suppliers have enough time to fully understand the specifications and requirements for delivery. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Power & Light is recommending delaying any action on a bond sale that would require an election and a subsequent rate increase. The project fund may have a balance that could still allow award of the equipment, but if funding is not sufficient to cover the top-ranked proposal cost, the equipment RFP will be rejected and a new solicitation commenced at a later date. Power & Light crew has dug in 2 5-inch conduits from the back of the substation to a new pole on Ira 2 Street, adjacent to the library. This will be the new feed to and from the substation so that the utility can eliminate the hammer slew spans and the rotten poles in the slough and at the Power & Light parking lot. Wire will be pulled into the new conduit soon. Jody's working on getting our budget together. I think she got the last of the capital project budgets in hand, and a little more direction on the state's contribution would help on the school bond debt reimbursement. We still do not know how that's going to go. I believe the governor vetoed it with the understanding that the care package would reimburse, and there has been discussion that will not be allowed by the federal government, so we'll see how that turns out. Quarterly grant and loan reports are due to the state this month. Jody in finance has been working on much of the bond refunding paperwork to get through, and we looked at the 2012 library bonds, and there just wasn't a big enough difference in the interest rate to make us a savings there, so it'll just be the power and light. The remote sales tax code for Petersburg is in the process of being set up and implemented with AML. And just a general huge thank you to all the staff members in all departments. It's been a very stressful time for folks. Everybody's doing super well, and things are under control. Special thank you to everyone that is working double duty on the IC team and supporting our community hospital during the pandemic response and emergency management. And that is all, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any questions for the manager on his report?
There is, Mr. Mayor, if I might. A question about the response we had from DOT about their STIP report, or their response to us. Have you checked that back against our original letter to them, and have they answered the question, Steve, and does there need to be any follow-up to that at this point?
We got a letter from them and a copy of the Cake to Petersburg plan in the mail today. I have not reviewed them. They came in fairly late. So that will be something I'll be looking at during the rest of this week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions of the manager? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Mr. Mayor?
And that brings us to item. Deb, is there a call?
Yes, actually, I have two more residents that have called in. If this would be a good time.
I think it would be a great time before we get farther into the unfinished and new business. So, put one on.
Okay, I believe the first caller will be Robert Schwartz.
Hi.
Hey, Rob,
All right. Well, it's Robert Schwartz. I live at 314 Syracuse Road. And this whole thing has got everybody in a pretty much stressful situation. I value life, and I value every life. But I want to be part of the 60%. And what I mean by that is the 60% of herd immunity to this virus that will eventually kill it. I want to get the virus, and by the time I get done with the virus, it's going to have to go into quarantine. So I want to protect the vulnerable, I want to protect the elderly, I want to protect anybody that has any kind of weakness that might make them susceptible to the point of their death. I talked to my brother-in-law who worked at Lemon Creek. They were all tested. 7 of them got it. 5 were asymptomatic. 1 had diarrhea for half a day. And the 7th guy was sick for 2 days and is now recovering. So I think with SARS and what happened with Zika virus, we have to defeat this thing. Our grandfathers defeated in Imperial Japan and Nazi Germany, and I am willing to step up, get the virus, and defeat it. So I understand all of the fear. I understand all of the apprehension and all of that. But I also am not willing to shut down the entire economy, put us into a Great Depression, and deal with all the consequences of that. So when we're making decisions in our town, in our state, I'm willing to step up and volunteer, just like we did in World War II, and go forward and defeat this thing. And give me the virus. I'm willing to take it. And I know there's others out there that think the same way I do. There's a lot of people not speaking up, because when you speak up, you're seen as some kind of insensitive bastard, and that's not really what it is. Beat this thing, and with the information we have now, 6 weeks later, that's my standpoint, and I just wanted to voice it. I want to be sensitive about it. I want to protect people. I don't want anybody to die.
but at the same time, I want to defeat this thing. So thank you for your time, and that's all I have. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Schwartz. Clerk Thompson, can you put the next caller on the line, please?
Yes, Chris, can we please have David Berg unmuted?
Mr. Berg, your line is now open.
Hi, it's David Berg, calling on behalf of myself and also President of Viking Travel. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to speak to the mandate about cruise ships. I appreciate the city trying to protect themselves. I certainly want to be protected, and I think it's a good thing to have something in place in case this thing doesn't blow over by the time that the cruise ships come here. I believe that they will have a plan addressed and can certainly do it more than 24 hours in advance. I'm sure that they know about any mandate that's passed and also assist them in complying with anything that's required. I do want to say that Alaska is open for not open for business, but we're waiting and waiting for visitors. Alaska's still here. Hopefully we will have the remnants of a visitor season here that will help not only sales taxes in the borough, but local businesses also. And we can get on with that. But I think it's important that we stay sequestered like we're doing and washing our hands, etc. So thank you. And I also appreciate you leaving us on the conference call. This is the way we're listening to it today. The live stream is not adequate to handle all of those that are trying to listen in. So please don't cut us off after the comments. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bird, for your testimony. Debbie, has anybody else called in?
No, that's it for right now. Thank you.
Okay, well, if you'll call in, certainly in a slow spot here, and we'll address it. Excuse me. That brings us to unfinished business. And there's one ordinance under unfinished business. It's 2020-06. And this was an ordinance addressing the fiscal year 2020 budget for unknown changes. Those changes are mostly for repairs at the swimming pool, and this is the third and final reading. So I would entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its third and final reading. So moved. Second. Motion's been made by Member Murphy, seconded by Member Lynn. Any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Brandy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Okay, so if I got the numbers right, that passed unanimously at its third and final reading. That brings us to ordinances for second reading. First one is ordinance 2020-10. This is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget to establish a local emergency disaster fund to respond to the COVID-19 outbreak. We'll entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its second reading. So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Meany, seconded by Member Norheim and Member Webb. Discussion. And I think Member Lynn, do you have any discussion on this? We'll go the alphabetical model this time.
No, I'm good. I think we need to continue to put this in effect.
Okay, thank you. Member Morello.
I have no comment.
Okay. Member Mucci.
Nothing here, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Member Mohan.
No.
Okay, Vice Mayor Stanton-Gregor.
I'm interested in definitely voting for it, and I think it's important for our community right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Frederick.
Ditto what Stanton-Gregor just said.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, will the clerk please call the roll on ordinance 2020-06 and its second reading?
2020-10 is actually the ordinance.
2010. Yeah, I backed up. Sorry.
That's okay.
I cut the number off.
Jeff?
Okay.
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Jensen, we do have another caller on the line, so you let me know when you're ready for it.
Okay, why don't we just take it right now?
Okay, Chris,
Remind me where we're at.
if you could please unmute Tanya Grant.
Grant, your line is now open.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the reason why I was calling was I was wondering about the dog ordinance, if it's going to be enforced a lot more, because the dogs are basically running Petersburg, and like, well, anybody can touch a dog, and somebody else will touch the dog, and it'll spread like wildfire that way. And I don't see anybody keeping their dogs on a leash. They're still walking them around everywhere. I mean, they can do the same thing of letting their dogs do their business in their own yard instead of letting them run around. And yeah, I had to chase a dog away from my son earlier, and yeah, it just needs to be really reinforced right now, because they can be carriers too. Even if they can't catch it, they can still be touched by somebody else. I would like to know what's going on. You guys are going to be enforcing that more.
I can't answer that question, but I know the leash law is in effect, and thank you for your comments. And maybe we should reach out to the borough manager. Steve, will that work?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Clerk Thompson, are there any other callers on the line?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, I believe we're under unfinished business on ordinance 2020-11. This is an ordinance approving the borough's participation in a proposed refinancing by the Alaska Municipal Bond Bank. And this was in a public hearing earlier in the meeting. It is to refinance a number of bonds for the Petersburg Municipal Power and Light, and a proposed saving of $270,000. I would entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance in its second reading.
Still moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I didn't quite pick up who made the motion and seconded it. If the clerk enters it into the record correctly, that would be good. Is there any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Mark?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 2020-11 passes unanimously in its second reading. That now brings us to item 15, new business. First item under new business is ordinance 2020-13. This is an emergency ordinance amending the fiscal year 19-20 budget to approve an emergency appropriation of $100,000 from the Economic Development Fund to the Petersburg Economic Development Council, Incorporated, to mitigate local economic impacts related to the COVID-19 outbreak. And if I'm not mistaken, this money will be used to help businesses in town to get through this time in a low economy. I entertain a motion to approve this ordinance. I believe it's a 3-reading ordinance. Or is it an emergency ordinance, Clerk Thompson? Is this a 1-reading ordinance?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so this will be the only reading on this ordinance. So I entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance.
So moved. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is made by Member Lynn, seconded by Member Norheim. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll. We go up medical order in here. Yeah, Member Lynn, do you have any comments?
No comments at this time.
Member Morrell.
No comment.
Member Mucci?
No comments at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Member Norheim?
No comment.
Member Stanton Gregor?
Yeah, I'm just going to say I'll definitely be voting for this. As our state and community works toward opening back up our economy, we're getting businesses back online. This can offer hopefully a small bridge to help some of those small businesses during this time. So I'm glad we got this before us tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Tremblay?
Just grateful that it was brought to us.
Okay, and I don't have a comment at this time, so if that's all the comments from the assembly, then the clerk please call the roll on ordinance 2020-13.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this emergency ordinance passes in the one reading with a unanimous vote. And now that brings us to item B under new business, local health mandates for consideration. And like the clerk recommended, I think we need to handle these mandates separately. We'll handle them in order as they're listed on our agenda. Just for a note for the public listing, there was a memo from Member Hageman that put these forward. His memo is in support of all 3 mandates. Mr. Hofstetter and Dr. Heyer from Petersburg Medical Center sent in a letter of support for the mandates. And that would bring us to needing a motion to approve the draft face covering mandate. So with that being said, I'd entertain a motion to there's no number on the mandate, so you have to just have to call it public health face covering mandate at this point. Entertain a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Mucci, seconded by Member Tremblay. So we'll open it up for discussion, and I think we'll just, I think we could probably do it with just people getting recognized. So can you just please address the chair and we'll recognize the assembly member that would like to speak. We'll give that a try.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Mucci, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a couple questions about the whole mask issue here.
and I don't know if Phil or Carl are on the line, but, one of the questions I've had over the last week here is, a couple weeks ago the CDC recommended not using masks, and what has changed for us to look at this mandate to mandate the masks?
This is Phil. I'm on the phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Phil.
And I don't know if Carl wants to speak to this, but I can speak to this a little bit. Part of the recent changes with the CDC, there's a couple of things. One is the knowledge of the virus continues to change practically on a daily, if not sometimes on an hourly basis. So the spread of the virus is what's changed, and the way that people can be asymptomatic and spread the virus is really the driving force behind masking. And masking doesn't necessarily prevent the virus from coming out of the mask. It just prevents it from spreading as far, so it keeps the aerosolization down. So as the CDC gains more knowledge on the virus, you can see that this is such a new virus in humans, and that is changing completely, and that the recommendations are going to be changing constantly as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other question I had was, is there guidelines for proper use of a mask? Like if you wear a mask to town and go to a public facility, are there guidelines for taking care of that mask once you return home?
Phil or Carl?
Yeah, this is Phil again. Yes, there are definitely some recommendations on how you utilize a mask. One of the things to recognize is that, it doesn't stop you from washing your hands, social distancing. They're even, recommending just simple cloth over your face as preventing the droplets from going even further. That's the primary reason for covering. But there are some tools online, education materials online that can talk about masking. We have one on our website where we had a sort of a homegrown video that talked about masking, and we will probably get more information out there in the next week or so.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hofstetter, for the questions. We will meet you. Are there any other questions or is there any other discussion on this face covering mandate that we have before us?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, this member Kobe?
Yeah.
We have the floor.
Thank you. And it's my understanding that we're calling it face coverings because it can be a rather broad swath of description. For example, I've been using a buff with sometimes a fabric liner underneath it as a face covering, and please correct me so if that is insufficient, but the biggest goal is just stopping when you're in public spaces with other people that are not in your household, creating that separation is me taking responsibility for my germs and protecting other people around me. And so I'm in support of this in part because there is no fine, there is no plan enforcement, which I know sounds contradictory, but I would be worried about unequal enforcement of that. So the fact that I'm grateful that it was crafted this way, what we're trying to do is just really urge people to take this seriously. So for that reason, I support it. I understand some of the reasons for why people are opposed to the idea of it, but when the people responsible for managing our emergency response are telling us that this is an urgent thing for people to do and to take responsibility in, then I believe it's on us as an assembly to listen to that recommendation. So
I'm looking forward to more conversation, but those are my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you, Member Trimble. Does anybody else want to take the floor?
Yeah, this is Member Stanton-Gregor, please.
Okay, go ahead, Member Stanton-Gregor.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to direct a question towards Carl and to begin with. Carl, I was hoping I'm reading over the mandate, and I've also gotten a lot of calls, and it seems like there's some confusion as to really what this mandate allows or does not allow by this. I was hoping you could walk through those in public, kind of the nuts and bolts of what's okay and what's not, if that makes sense, Carl.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Carl. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Sure. I think there is some misunderstanding about what the mandate says. I've seen a couple, actually a few comments today about people not wanting to wear a mask all day long anytime they leave their home, and that's not what the mandate says. First of all, it is more geared towards, it is geared towards situations where you're out of your home and you're around others, not from your household, and you cannot maintain that social distancing of 6 feet. For instance, when you are going to enter a business and you are highly likely to encounter other people in that business, the chances of you meeting that social distancing is decreased. So a mask would be appropriate. When talking with or passing by non-household members on the street or sidewalk or the docks, someplace that's limited width and it's hard to get away from people, that would be mask appropriate. When you're working in a business and around other coworkers or the public, and the social distancing is compromised, then that would be also subject to masking. When you're traveling in vehicles with non-household members, it's very difficult, of course, to meet social distancing, so face covering would be needed then. Situations where you're out on a boat, even like a small skiff or even a larger boat, social distancing is very hard to manage, and so it would be a good idea to wear a mask so you don't infect each other if you're out with a friend that doesn't live in your same household. There are lots of situations that exist where people don't need to wear a face covering. When you're at home with household members that have no symptoms and are not sick, you surely don't have to wear a mask then. Home alone, working alone, or driving alone, no mask. If you're in a vehicle with other household members, nobody needs to wear a mask in that situation. If you're out for a walk or enjoying the outdoors with members of your household, then no mask is needed. Working in your yard, doing things around the house, either alone or with household members, no mask needed. Out getting a load of firewood with members of your household, no mask. So it's I hope that helps clarify some of the situations that would and would not require a mask. It definitely does not say, the mandate does not say that a mask is required anytime you're out of your home. And I think it's very common sense based, and it is designed to protect others from you. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does, Carl, and I'm just reading it, and thank you for that thorough description, because there's a couple things in there I hadn't considered. Now, as I'm talking to you, I've got the mandate in front of me, and an email came in earlier today from me, and it doesn't apply to children under 2 either, and or anyone with pulmonary or breathing conditions, of course, where that would be prohibitive. So thank you for that. That clarified a couple things for me and hopefully for the public also. I've got one more question for Phil, and then I'm going to give a brief statement of some thoughts I've got. Phil, you hear me okay? I've read an email from you as medical professionals. Next thing, I'm going to withdraw that question because Phil's already touched plenty on it. I don't want to be redundant. My short answer, because I could speak on this for a while, because I thought a lot about it and read all the emails that have come in on this, is twofold. One is me as a citizen. Like, I admit, I've got masks and I don't like wearing them because they're not comfortable. I'm getting used to them. But I also know that it's something important. I go to the store, I choose to wear one right now because I hope I'm not a carrier, but I don't want to get my essential service workers sick. They're bagging my groceries, getting food for me, and helping my family live, and I appreciate that. I tell them that whenever I go up there, but I appreciate it more than I can describe. The efforts people are putting to help me live a semblance of a day-to-day life. What really resonates with me about this, about approving this, and why I'm going to vote yes, is every single healthcare professional that's emailed us, called in, or spoke says this is a good idea. And I try to do plenty of research like we all do, but I'm not a medical professional. I don't live and breathe this COVID thing all day long in terms of its trajectory. Phil's of course spot on that it's shifting so quickly and so often. And what I'm struck by is the medical community, including the CDC and our State Department of Health and Human Services, all saying, masks are a good idea. We need to not flood our medical system. And we got to defer to the experts on that one. And I appreciate them for being thoughtful in their support of this mandate. In my take on all these medical professionals, it wasn't done flippantly or in a knee-jerk way. The emails I've read from them and Liz Bacon speaking earlier, it's thoughtful. These people are trying to be responsive and not reactive. And I think there's a big difference between reactive and responsive. And so what I'm hearing from the medical professionals is a responsive one. And I feel it's important for me to follow their lead. I'll be voting yes. Thank you.
Anyone else like the floor to
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could, please.
You bet.
Okay, that question relates more to Carl. Right now, my understanding is that if you're a non-essential business, that if you file a plan with the state approves it, you can open. Would the fact that we have updated masking in place help any of our non-essential businesses start back in operation? In other words, give them a head start the fact that we had it in place. And am I correct about the plan has to go to the state?
Mr. Mayor, this is Carl. Thank you. Yes, Member Lynn, you're correct. The plans, non-essential businesses that can meet the requirements, the mandated social distancing requirements for essential businesses. If they can meet those, then they can operate as an essential business. Right now, that's in the mandates from the state currently. The fact that, or the opportunity, I guess, here for Petersburg to have a mandatory masking mandate could help in that regard. Although because the non-essential businesses are allowed to operate right now under essentially the same criteria that essential businesses can operate, I'm not sure that it really lends a foot up like you're describing, but it does make good sense to me, and I think it should be passed for essential businesses and non-essential businesses.
Thank you.
Okay, are there somebody?
I have a question.
Member Borough, you have the floor.
I have a question for Carl. First off, if we're mandating masks, are we providing them to the rest of the community, or are we just expecting people to make their own, or, I mean, what's the plan here?
That's a great question. Through the mayor, I'll
answer that. So the mandate is written in a broad fashion, like Member Tremblay described, so that any number of things can be used as a facial covering. It doesn't say that you're required to make or to wear a homemade cloth mask. Although there are a lot of those being produced right now in town, the mask makers are doing a fantastic job with that. So the mandate was written in a broad fashion to allow kerchiefs, puffs, that kind of thing to be used as a facial covering. The most important thing is just to knock down those droplets coming out of noses and mouths. But that being said, the local mask makers and the EOC will be working together to organize the consolidation of masks and the distribution of masks to people that put in requests for them. The Southeast mask makers have been performing that function throughout the region, but the EOC recently brought on another team member to specifically handle the mask consolidation and distribution. So that's just getting going. The masks will be dropped off at the drugstore. The owners of the drugstore have been gracious about offering a drop-off spot for anybody that's making masks at home. And then the EOC member will inventory and develop a system for distribution of those masks to people that need them.
I have one more question and then a comment. My other question is, currently I'm assuming we have just the one positive case, and is that person positive or recovered, or do we have any other known ones as of right now?
I'll let Phil take that one. Phil, can you answer that one?
Yes, Phil. So there's one positive. Okay, so is it okay if I just expand and comment a little bit? It's what I mentioned on the radio today related to the virus in general. That I think one of the things that we need to do is really avoid kind of addressing it as a single point of person. I think the way that this disease is, or this virus is spreading, that it's more of a community concern that it could be acquired anywhere and from asymptomatic. So if it is a non-travel related case, then you would expect to be other folks out there that may have the virus. And so from that perspective, I caution people really trying to hone in on a specific person for a couple of reasons. One, by the time we identify a positive, so the way it works is a couple, when someone is symptomatic, maybe they, on the second day, they're symptomatic, they decide to get tested. The test is done, it's sent out. There's 3 days of time there. So by the time the test is returned, you're almost looking about 5, 6, 7 days. And during that time frame, if the person recovered, it could be counted as a recovered. And the next question is not really with the person, but how much other contact is there within the time frame when that person was active. And that's why I caution looking at individuals, because it's a really hard question to answer that epidemiologists are doing. That's what the contact investigations are for. And they can help nail that down. But the message is that we just really kind of have to walk around this community assuming that there's people that we don't know, and if we just have behaviors that, social distancing, masking, and the things that we've been talking about, and just practicing those behaviors, we're less likely to pick that up. I feel horrible that we don't have a more advanced, medication or anything. We're using methods that were used many, many years ago. So anyway,
is it realistic? Is it realistic at this point that if this was to pass, that it would be lifted on May 5th? Because to me, it doesn't seem like it seems like something that will be in place for a while.
Really don't know the answer to that question. I think the way that, all I can say is that things change on a daily basis. I would just advocate for doing what we can now. One of the things that we're focusing on is testing availability. I mean, the state has been talking about that as well. Will that change the mandate, or will we have a study that will say something different? You know, I think we kind of have to look at this marathon more in the short term and looking at it like this is what we're going to do right now in this time frame, and then we'll address it going forward. It's hard to predict the future, so I don't have a good answer for you, although we will be addressing any changes or having more information as they come up.
Thank you. So with that, that's all good information. To me, this is just a really big overreach of our power. I think that the community cares about the other community members. Yes, there's always a couple that don't abide by advisories and such things, but even see people being chewed out in the grocery store for not wearing a face mask, which is causing a bunch of dissension in our community and division, by somebody that was shopping with their spouse. So, you know, there's just so many advisories and mandates, and I think people are trying to do the best, and I think we need to trust our community, and I just think this is a complete overreach. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Phil and Carl, and member Borough, thank you. Any other assembly members like to get the floor? You have member Trimbley, member Stangberger, member Borough, and member Lansell. Member Leach, member Mahan?
Yeah, I'm kind of there with Brandy on this one. I have to ask if this particular order, it has no teeth to it at all. It's just an advisory, basically. We're just calling it a mandate. Couldn't the private businesses do this? I mean, couldn't this fall under no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service? Couldn't they do that themselves instead of putting this weird kind of, the government says you must do this? Why not just say, hey, we care about you as one of your business providers. You need to wear a mask when you come in the store because we care about not only you but everybody else who's coming in here. I mean, that's what it was supposed to be, is the private businesses do things and the government tries to stay out as little as possible, in it as little as possible. And I understand it's only a 2-week thing, but it's causing issues, the mandate and the stuff, even if it's only a little thing, even if it's a common sense thing. I feel like we could just have the stores say, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. Go get a mask, go get a towel, a handkerchief, whatever, put it around your face, and then come in. I do not like this whole mandate stuff. It's frustrating me and conflicting me.
Okay, thank you, Member Moore. Member Richard, you have a comment you'd like to interject?
Sure, I already have, Mr. Mayor, but, while this is a mandate, the private businesses can certainly do what they want to do. I think if the borough starts mandating that private businesses need to mandate masks, then I think we have issues. We have other issues and that's not what I want to do. For all the letters and the people I talked to over the last week, my intent is not to take away people's rights. I mean, that's not what I'm all about. We're all Alaskans. We're pretty independent. I'm not willing to gamble on the 3,000 people here in Petersburg and who are living over on Kupreanof. I can't do that. I would rather err on the side of caution and say nobody got sick, as opposed to saying, well, let's not pass this mandate, and oops, I guess we should have done it. I can't do that. I also can't turn my back on the healthcare providers up at the hospital. They're on the front lines. They're giving us advice that some people don't like, but, I have to I'm not going to pay any attention to the national discourse that's going on and all the dissension that's out there. All I'm concerned about is the 3,000 people that live here on Midcoff Island and Kupernov, as well as the healthcare providers. And it's not just the healthcare providers, it's all the people who are on the front lines delivering groceries and stuff. They're taking chances every day. But I can't turn my back on the healthcare providers in town. I rely on them for a lot. And if I went to the doctor and the doctor told me I had some issues and I needed to lose 20 pounds and stop eating salt and get more exercise, and they said, oh, well, that's just your opinion. I'm just going to do what I want to do anyway. I trust the healthcare providers, and while I might not like all the mandates, I have to take responsibility for everybody in this town, not just my immediate family. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Mucci. So I didn't realize you spoke to this already, so you're the first one looking at my notes. So all the assembly members have, put their input. So that leaves me. There has been a lot of input, a lot of emails on this topic. I think the public is doing a pretty good job of being responsible and trying to go by just the request of wearing masks when you're in public. And I feel there are people that will not listen to it even if you make it a mandate. So I don't think I will vote in support of this, but first of all, I do have a question for Mr. Hagerman. I was going to ask, and then the Assembly member brought it up, that there is no fine for this. So what are the teeth behind this mandate, and how do you plan to enforce this mandate on the public, and who will enforce it? Can you answer that for me, please, Paul?
Yes, I can, and I thank you for asking that question, because I was going to try and butt in and make a very important clarification. This mandate is covered under Chapter 3.72, which is the emergency ordinance, so there is a fine associated with violation of the facial covering ordinance, ordinance mandate, excuse me. And so that a violation of the ordinance, the emergency ordinance, which the mandate will become part of, is a $500 fine per violation. And so that, if that violation was cited, it would be cited by a local law enforcement officer, and a ticket would be written. We are, in every mandate from the state or local, we are focusing on education first, and so it is not as if the police department is going to be writing tickets right and left. We really want to educate people on the need for the mandates. There is a reason that we're doing this. It's public health, to maintain public health in our communities, to prevent the overwhelming of our public healthcare system. And so we're trying to focus on education above all. If somebody does choose not to meet the mandate and it's egregious, there is a potential, of course, for a fine. But that's the teeth that we have.
Okay, I thought that would probably apply to this as well. And is there also, I can't remember what we added with their jail time?
I believe so. I think there's a misdemeanor offense attached to violation as well. But I think the fine, the violation, what the borough has moved to in the last several years of identifying fines for violations of code is how this emergency ordinance was patterned as well.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. And with that being said, I believe we've all had our input. I just find it hard.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, who's this?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, well, I think we should limit this to like one or two opinions, interjections, and then we'll just move on to a vote. So I would just...
Sure, I just wanted to clarify a date on the effective date and duration.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be May 5th, but it must extend it earlier terminated, but I was still in my testimony, so. Is that all you wanted to add, Mr. Leach?
Well, no, it says it's effective at 8 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, but that's just, people would realize that wasn't the case, so I imagine it would go into effect immediately. Clerk Thompson, is that where it should be written? Maybe that could be changed. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for bringing that up publicly.
Yes, that could certainly be changed, Mayor Jensen. We could, say 8 a.m. tomorrow morning if it passes or whatever.
Okay, thank you for that. We lost my train of thought, so I just think this is going to be awful hard to enforce, and I just think it's a little bit, I understand the help people's request for it, and I just don't feel it's necessary at this time. So with that being said, Okay, Member Tribble.
Okay, thank you. I have quick questions for Bill. It's about the state of Alaska's, basically, you have been doing such a great job with our community of keeping us moving forward and being proactive in the face of this virus. I wanted to look back on the first positive case that we had located in Petersburg and that timeline. That employee was at work until the hospital, I believe, in advance of the state, changed your policies so that travelers went to home. Is that correct?
I think we should stay on the topic, and we're addressing non-face.
No,
I can't comment on any staff or anything, yeah.
It was mainly based on news reports and the state of Alaska changing its mandate. I've just been overwhelmingly impressed with how our hospital has been proactive and making the recommendations that I believe is helping keep our community safe. And I want to thank you, Mayor, for the important clarification about fines. I would hope that the enforcement of this would not be punitive, and I'm so grateful that the EOC command team is being proactive in addressing our most vulnerable first. So hopefully those groups can be prioritized when it comes to distributing masks. People that, and coming up with some kind of a system for folks that don't have cleaning access, keeping people safe as much as possible is our number one job as government representatives, and so I hope we take that seriously.
Okay, thank you. With that,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Lynn.
Is it possible, I'm searching here, is it possible to pass this without a punitive measure behind it?
I would believe, just my opinion, maybe the clerk or call can clarify, we would have to go back and change the emergency ordinance. But potentially we could make this one separate. Clerk Thompson, do you have a thought on that, or Member Hagerman? These can be amended, but we could add language where there would be no fine, but then, and back to my point where it's kind of like the person that spoke earlier. We have a leash law that's not enforced. We have a no wake law in the harbor that's not enforced. So now we put in these real masks, but we have to wear a mask mandate in, and can you enforce it yet? So I don't know. Can you answer that, Carl or Debbie? Do you have a thought on can we change this and take the fine out of it, out of this particular mandate?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. So as you mentioned, yeah, it does would sudden remove all the teeth from this mandate, but if the Assembly were to pass it as a health alert instead of a mandate, then the fine language would not be applicable. The state already has a health alert for facial coverings in place. One of the points of making this a mandate is to, I guess, take a further step locally that does not conflict with the state mandate in favor of protecting public health to a greater degree than the state had decided to do. But that is the way that I believe that Member Lynn would achieve his purpose.
Does that answer your question, Member Lynn?
That answers the question. I have the same problem that the mayor does with putting a punitive measure behind this and something that we're not going to enforce.
Okay, we'll ask for one more round of comments from the Assembly before we move to a vote on this face covering mandate. Any other comments?
Just one, Norheim, David.
Member Norheim?
With the virus, just to kind of touch on what Rob had said earlier, about wanting to get infected so you could be part of the immunization. Unless I'm massively misreading all of this, is that you have a decent chance of being infected not knowing it? And I guess the big point that's conflicting with me here is the life, liberty, property. Well, the life and liberty are currently conflicting, and I don't know where to fall on that. And the problem is that all of that seems to be based around, well, there's an enemy, go get the enemy, they're the bad guy. Well, we don't really have a bad guy here. So we've got a virus where everybody's the bad guy, maybe. Who knows? And I think it's important that you go out, you wear the mask and whatnot, wash your hands all the time. But in the purpose of this ordinance, it's too much of an overreach for me. It's not. People are getting really edgy, and one more thing here, it's not good.
Okay, thank you. If everybody's seen us empty there, please. Go ahead, Member Stanton.
Thanks, everybody. Mr. Mayor, for getting a second one in. My hope is that the Assembly right now chooses to be the Assembly that follows the strong and firm advice of the medical professionals. None of us are medical professionals. We're all confused and doing our best and trying to wrestle with all this right now. I really hope the Assembly chooses to follow the advice of unanimously all medical professionals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. With that being said, if there's no one with my attention, then I'll allow you to do that to speak, I guess. But will the clerk please call the roll?
Taylor?
No.
Jay?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Randy?
No.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Mark?
No. So the face covering mandate passes with the 4-3 vote with Mayor Jensen, I believe Member Norheim and Member Moreau voting in opposition. So I guess...
Mr. Mayor, can I make a point of order real quick?
Yes.
I think it's a little inappropriate to celebrate a vote vocally over the radio like that. Just thought I'd point that out.
Okay,
Vice Mayor.
This isn't a win-lose situation. It's a voice your opinion. And so we'll just move past that. Maybe we can discuss it another time. So this mandate, will be in effect tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. until May 5th, unless taken off earlier or extended. So that brings us to draft harbor facilities mandate. I would entertain a motion to put this mandate in place. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Because I believe Member Mucci made the motion, Member Norheim seconded it. And with that thought, I think it is improper to be cheering when the vote gets cast. I'm assuming it was one of our assembly members. But, so with that being said, is there any discussion on this Petersburg Borough Public Health mandate with no number to it for Borough Harbor facilities, cruise ship dockings, and disembarkment?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible to get a brief rundown on this health mandate from either Carl, please?
Yes, Mr. Higgins, can you give us your opinion of what the nuts and bolts of this are? It's written in the mandate, but maybe you just go through it, but people listening in the public, if they haven't read it, will get up to speed.
Sure, no problem, Mr. Mayor. I'll just read the substantive portion of the mandate, not the preamble. It says, no cruise ship entering the borough may utilize borough harbor facilities as defined in the Municipal Code 14.20.030 or disembark passengers or crew members onto the docks or floats of those facilities without the prior written approval of the borough public health officer. Said approval to be conditioned upon a finding that the vessel passengers and crew present no hazard of transmitting COVID-19 to the Petersburg community. The captain or master of the vessel shall contact the Borough Public Health Officer, Mark DeSillo, at his phone number at least 24 hours prior to the vessel's anticipated arrival. In this mandate, cruise ship, in quotes, means any commercial passenger carrying vessel with the capacity to carry 25 or more passengers who are traveling for pleasure and with an itinerary anticipating an overnight stay on board. So this mandate addresses boats that are smaller than the CDC's no sail order is applicable to. Those boats are 250 or higher passengers, and so the larger ships have already been put on a no sail status into the summer, I believe. But we were hearing a lot of concern from locals about the smaller ships that we do receive into Petersburg and the potential for those passengers and crew carrying the virus into our community.
Okay, thank you. Is that what you were looking for?
Yes, it was, Mr. Mayor. You know, the question I had was that description, is that 24-hour window prior to the vessel's anticipated arrival, is that a realistic number for, I mean, what if we have several cruise ships coming in throughout a couple of days? Is that 24 hours a realistic number? Thank you.
Through the mayor, Member Mucci, we believe it is. The cruise ship schedule is not very congested. We do know when the boats will be in. Dr. Tasillo will be anticipating those calls and available to answer them and take action as needed.
Thank you.
Any other input from assembly members on this?
Actually, yes, Mr. Mayor. This is Vice Mayor Spendecker. This is a point of clarification. I've been on full mute, and nor have I been yelling sitting here in my office, so I don't know what noise I heard like you all did hear, but as I was getting a drink of water, I heard my name mentioned, and I thought it'd be important to clarify that to the listening public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this mandate, proposed mandate, for Borough Harbor facilities, cruise ship docking, and disembarkment? And this pertains only to the cruise ship industry, Mr. Higman, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, yeah, it pertains to commercial passenger carrying vessels.
between 25 passengers and 250. Is that so? That's the way I read it. So.
Well, any ship over the capacity of 25.
Correct.
Yep.
So even over 250.
Yes. It would apply to those large ships too.
Got it. Thank you. Any other comments by Assembly members on this proposed mandate? Please call the roll.
Bob?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Sure. This Pearl Harbor Facilities mandate, I suppose there will be a number attached to it, will go into effect immediately on a 7-0 vote by the Assembly. So that brings us to the third and final mandate. It's called submission of travel plans. And this, maybe we'll get an explanation from Carl, but we will get it on the floor first. I'd entertain a motion to approve this mandate.
So moved.
So second.
Second.
I believe the motion was made by Member Mucci and seconded by Member Tremblay. So with that being said, again, Mr. Hageman, could you please, for the benefit of the Assembly and the listening public, give us a rundown of what this would do? I think I understand what it is, that Brussels having to submit a plan to the harbor. Can you clarify, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and maybe for this one I'll read the preamble as well. It's clarifying. So it says, under State of Alaska Health Mandates 10.1 and number 12, certain businesses are required to submit travel plans to the State of Alaska, which demonstrate how the business plans to avoid the spread of COVID-19 and protect the communities in which they operate. It is vital that such plans also be provided to the communities themselves to ensure that local concerns are made known and addressed. Enforcement of the requirements of travel plans will likely be at a local level, as state enforcement appears to be extremely limited at this point in time. Accordingly, due to this ongoing public health emergency, it is in the best interest of the safety and health of Petersburg that the required travel plans be submitted to the Borough for review and comment. The conditions of this mandate are designed to provide the least necessary restrictions. So one important point to make here is that we are asking for submission of the plans for us to review and comment. We do not have approval authority because the state has established that authority over these plans already. We would like the opportunity to comment, but we have an understanding that it would be against the state's mandate to expect a business to fully comply with any comments that we have. We are looking at this as a collaborative effort and believing that many businesses that we have spoken to are open to adjusting plans to meet public health concerns, and we would just want the opportunity to comment on those plans. Moving further into the business end of the mandate, it says any business intending to bring or send workers into the Petersburg Borough, and that is included in Alaska's essential services and critical infrastructure, formerly Attachment A, and therefore required under State Health Mandate 10 and or State Health Mandate 12 to submit a protective plan to the State of Alaska, is also required to simultaneously submit the plan to the Petersburg Borough for review and comment. If the plan has already been submitted to the State of Alaska, then it shall be submitted to the Borough within 24 hours of the effective date of this mandate. The plan shall be submitted to the Petersburg EOC, Inspect Commander at eoc@petersburgak.gov. The commander shall respond to a business submitting a plan with any requested revisions or amendments which would better serve to protect the community within 3 business days of submission unless extended by the commander for good cause, and shall work with the businesses in good faith to come up with an acceptable plan. And so this ordinance is, because it is somewhat based on the state requirement and mandates 10 and 12 for plans, is in effect until those state mandates 10 and 12 are repealed or terminated.
Okay, thank you for explaining it. And so does this pertain to tenders and fishing vessels and that part of the essential services list as well? And say construction companies, etc.?
Yes, it does. Any business that is included in the Alaska Essential Services and Critical Infrastructure attachment to the state's mandate, which I believe all those businesses you just mentioned are.
Okay, I was thinking that was in part of it. And once again, I should have let the assembly go first, but since I'm rambling on here, this mandate as well would have a fine associated with it. Is that correct? Potential fine.
Yes, that is correct. It is also being under the authority of Chapter 3.72.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
This member Stan Gregor?
No, this is Member Lynn.
Okay, Member Lynn, you have the floor.
May I ask a follow-up question to what you've asked to Carl?
Sure, you have the floor.
Thank you. Carl, and this, if we have, and I'll use a couple of examples, if people have to, experts have to come to town to say, service some part of our utility, or for that matter, work on a boat or do something else that for services that we don't have locally, for example, and it would entail one person or maybe two people, would these same type of requirements apply to those folks too?
Yes, it would. It's any essential business that travels. I guess I should clarify that for Mayor Jensen as well. So any essential business that has to travel into Petersburg.
Okay, and it would be this also, and I don't have that right in front of me, will this also expire on the 5th of May?
No, this one is in effect in the same effective period as state mandates number 10 and number 12. And we do not know how long those will be in effect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other input from Assembly member?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Meese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I guess partial question to call, but this is a state mandate that's already in effect, and this is just giving the community an opportunity to look at it before the businesses come to town or enact their plan. We just want a chance to look at it and make sure it meets all of our requirements. Is that correct? Thank you.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Member Meese. Any other comments from Assembly members or input on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Member Tremblay?
Yeah, I'm just really grateful for this. It seems like a common sense way for the Instant Command team to be on top of folks traveling and potential opportunities for exposure risk. And I hope that this helps assuage fears that people have. People have been reaching out to us a lot about being concerned about higher influxes of folks traveling with the essential work that happens in town in summertime. And, it kind of speaks to Phil's point earlier about thinking of this as a community is the virus is what we're dealing with. The people are just the carriers of it. And as long as responsible parties act accordingly and act responsibly, this can be managed to the best of our capability. And I see this as a way of us being proactive in that regard. So I'm grateful that this was brought to us in a way that does not conflict with the state mandate. It's just us having as much local control over the situation as possible.
Any other single member have comments or input on this? Member Norheim, Member Morrell?
No.
Okay, thank you, Member Norheim. Member Morrell? Okay, I guess
no comment.
Okay, thank you. So, Carl, I have another question for you. So it goes to the state, and we just want to get the information. And in this language, and I'm sure there has been plans submitted to the state already. How are we going to know who submitted them? Are we just going to ask the state to give those to us within 24 hours?
That is a very good question, Mr. Mayor. So the state has told us that they will provide plans to us. They have actually made that statement mostly geared towards the processing plants who are bringing workers in to Petersburg. And so they've been forthcoming with that particular group of businesses, but have not mentioned other businesses. They have likely received tens of thousands of plans to review and comment on and approve, and so it's highly unlikely that they will be able to give us a list of businesses that have said they want to come to Petersburg, Alaska. So again, this is practically every mandate at state or local level or federal level is requiring an honor system, and if a business that is operating in Petersburg is bringing somebody into town, they should provide a plan to the borough as well as the state.
Okay, so I see where you're going with this. You just want all the information the state gets, and they're the ones that make the decision. We just get the plan with our input. Hopefully, before they make their decision, they can see if that's where this is going. So what? I mean, I guess so there's a potential here if someone wants to come and say fix, like the assembly member stated earlier, someone's fishing boat, if they don't have the capability of doing that in town, they make a plan, they come here, they're from out of state, they have to self-quarantine for 14 days? So it would be,
Mr. Mayor, the state mandates have lots of allowances for essential work to be completed, and in the case of an out-of-state worker that would come in that's critical, they would still have to have a plan. They'll have to submit that to the state of Alaska before they travel, and they can come into Petersburg and they can perform their critical service, whatever that is. But they would also have to fill out the travel declaration form for interstate travel. And on that form, they have to declare where they're going to quarantine, because there is a mandatory quarantine. But, like I said, there's an allowance for them to do their work. So they need to protect the community while they're doing their work. They need to observe social distancing. And whenever they're not doing their work, they need to quarantine, and wherever they marked as their quarantine area on the travel form.
Okay, thank you. And then the state, I believe, and I don't know if they took some action today, but right before the meeting started, but they're going to come up with a template, I believe, for fishing vessels and tenders, different categories. I don't know how they're going to put it out to us, but so that is what we would want a copy of. If the state, for instance, just asks me on the fishing vessel twilight to fill out a template and send it in and they approve it, that would be acceptable to the borough. It'd have to be, I guess, if it meets the state requirements, because they supersede all authority.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I'm aware of the effort on the state's part to try to streamline the numerous fishing vessels and tenders that do business in our region, and I think that's a good idea. And so those plans basically will already be pre-approved by the state. All the different vessel owners will just need to fill them out, sign and return to the state, and at the same time simultaneously issue them to the borough.
Okay, and the intent is then for you being the commander of the EOC is to go over all of these plans, I guess, within 3 days and return them, so that's going to could be potentially busy, so we'll see how it all shakes out. So anyway, sorry to be long-winded, but thank you for your explanations.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from assembly members? A quick thank you to Carl.
Thank you to Carl for clarifying on all the questions I asked of him tonight. That was helpful to hear that again. Thank you, Carl.
Okay. Any other comments by assembly members? If not, I will ask the clerk to call the roll on this third mandate. Debbie, would you call the roll?
You bet. Mark?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that third mandate passes unanimously. That brings us to the next thing under new business on the agenda, item C. June, we need a letter to Senator Murkowski, Senator Sullivan, and Congressman Young. This letter was drafted by Assembly Member Tremblay and will be sent to our federal delegation. I'd entertain a motion to approve this letter.
So moved.
Second. And for some reason, the speaker is getting kind of fuzzy here, and the clerk knows who made the motion in second, and so we've got them, and the item is on the floor. Is there any discussion from the Assembly?
Yep. Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Question, Milan?
Yeah, I have a question for Member Tremblay. Was that letter reviewed by Phil and the staff at the medical center?
I believe I sent it. The text of the bullet points are quotations from his report, which is included in the letter.
And then I assume he's in favor of it?
Yes. Unless, is he still on the clock? He assumes so.
That was like Mr. Hofstetter. Are you still on the phone?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still on the phone.
Okay, can you answer that, please?
I don't believe I've reviewed that specific letter. We did provide a memo to the Assembly, I think, for maybe a week ago or so. As long as it had those bullets, I'd be supportive of that. But I to be honest, I did not read this letter.
Okay, well, the early rollout of the FEMA in support of rural communities as we deal with the ongoing crisis. And Member Tremblay, so you could probably answer Mr. Hofstetter's question if this is the same bullet points as he provided earlier.
They are. They're the bolded sentences that ended each line, basically, of the paragraph that he wrote up. And I put this together in response to, because the memo was so thorough, and then when I heard Vice Mayor Stanton Greger give his report in the daily briefing on KFSK the day of the conference, the call with the mayors, we noted that, there's so much detail for them to give to the communities that our federal delegation spoke for 35 of the 55 minutes of the call. And so I just wanted to, I know Phil's on it doing what he can to advocate for the hospital to get what they need. I just wanted to make sure that our communications with our delegation were as thorough as possible. And, he went through the work of putting the memo together, and I just wanted to send it. And, it is really frustrating to me not being able to do a working document with the Assembly
So I'm super open to amendments, suggestions. I just wanted to make it clear what we need to be able to address the COVID issue as efficiently as possible. I share a lot of people's frustrations about, how this is affecting our community, and when the hospital says they need these things to meet the issue head on, then I just trying to get the message to where it needs to go. So open to amendments, open to suggestions, and the bullet point, the bottom additions were my own of the subsequent the other aspects of infrastructure that we're relying on right now: public radio, postal service, our emergency services, as well as our grocery store employees, as far as the frontline folks. So again, open to amendments and suggestions, and those are all direct quotes from the memo.
So that, I guess there was a question from member Lynn. Does that kind of ask questions?
That just assumes reading a couple of FEMA's changes in terms of that address somewhat where Phil's needs are. And I don't know enough about it to say whether or not his position and so forth. So I can't answer anything one way or another because I don't know. I'm in favor of sending a letter. I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure we're in line with where the hospital's needs are. Is all I'm at.
Okay, thank you. Is that Mr. Hofstadter on the phone? As long as the memo is still appropriate that we sent, so as long as the bullets reflect that, and I'm sure it would be appropriate. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the Assembly members on approving sending this letter to our congressional delegation?
Just a real quick one. To the point of making sure that it had the right things in there. I mean, that could change, next week by the time somebody gets around to reading this letter. So, I think we should go for it and move it, and then if the needs change, then send another one, I guess.
That is always an option. I tend to agree. So any other comments by the Assembly members? If not, we will, if there's no proposed amendments, we will vote on sending the letter as presented. One quick one, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Member Sandberg. Thank you. Yeah, I think Member Morheim touched on really, a place where, a critical part that if our needs change or this fluid situation evolves, we can always send a different letter at a different time, and I'll be voting yes, because right now this would suit our needs today, and as Member Morheim said, if our needs switch in the future, we can always send another letter. That's all. Okay, thank you. If there's no other comments or any ideas for modifying the letter, I'm not hearing any, so I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Bob?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chelsea?
Yes.
Okay, so we will be sending the letter to our Senators Murkowski, Sullivan, and Congressman Young. Next item on the agenda is communications, and just like earlier, all of the emails that we received about the mandates will be entered into the minutes, and they will be listed under communications like the ones are on our meeting tonight, because they came after the agenda was publicly submitted. And there's a letter from the Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, and that letter is about our letter we sent to them on the SNP plan, and I believe Manager Eastrick received a letter today, and so he will review public asking how long we propose that it would take to install the submarine cable. And also there was a letter from Ms. Woodworth on the Project East. So those are all on the record. And a letter from American Cruise Line wanting to be involved in discussions on the tour industry in Petersburg. So does anybody want to expand on any of those communications or feel that they would like to read one? What are your thoughts?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you. I don't really want to read any of them, but maybe somebody touched on earlier. When would the public have a chance to go and look at the many letters and comments that we received over the last week? Thank you.
I believe they will all be on the minutes of this meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Clerk Thompson, can you kind of give a clarification and an update as far as timing on that?
Yeah, the truth is, thank you, Mayor Jensen. I am really behind on minutes. I haven't done minutes since sometime in March. Lots of meetings, and I need to catch up. So I'm trying to figure out what I could do. Maybe what I could do is ask for help and have it put on the Borough, have all the letters put on the Borough website tomorrow. That way people wouldn't have to wait for the minutes. Would that work?
That would work. And then the public could also see all the communications that we have received as an assembly.
Okay, I will get that done in the morning. We'll have either a link right on the first page. You should be able to find a place where there would be comments from the public for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Member Mitchell. Thank you, Clerk Thompson. Is everybody okay with that? And okay with these communications just being listed and not read this evening?
Yeah, seems appropriate.
Okay. So we'll move forward, seeing there's no opposition to that. The assembly discussion items, we added in the assembly discussion item 17A that I requested. I don't know, we were supposed to get some information back to Governor Dudley and his administration on our thoughts about opening up business to the public. And I think it's probably, and of course it was ASAP, as long as soon as possible. I don't know how we can do that and get input from Paul and his team and medical center and businesses in town. I was proposing that we have a special meeting, but then right before this meeting, I was watching the state news and heard the governor say that he was going to have another call-in tomorrow with mayors, and I would assume it would be the same scenario as the last one last Friday, with the board of directors from the last municipal league. So I reached out to Mills Andreessen from AML, and I just got a response right when we started the meeting, so I haven't had time to look at it. But I think it's important that since we were asked as a community how we thought that projection should go in Petersburg as far as opening businesses and to what extent of what we thought we were comfortable with. So, any other thoughts? We have a special meeting. What do we discuss?
Mr. Mayor? A question and comment here. Would it be possible, I agree with you on a special meeting to just discuss that one item, but would it be possible to put those questions up on the web and ask the people of Petersburg, if they have thoughts on it, to go with that we can take a look at before that meeting?
I would, that's why I'm kind of, trying to figure out what would be the best time for a meeting. We need input from the community, and then I don't know if the phone call tomorrow with the governor is actually scheduled. I have to go look at my emails, but I didn't feel I should do that when we were doing the meeting. So, I guess we need to figure out what the availability would be and if we could have a quorum within the next couple of days for a meeting and wait for public input. But it seems like a lot of this stuff is being brought to us when we don't have time to thoroughly digest it or collect information from the Chamber of Commerce, for instance, PGC, business owners. So I don't know that I feel comfortable somebody, deciding, what to open first. And I think it's a community all that's comfortable with. So I don't know, what are some of your thoughts?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
thank you, Mr. Mayor. About 3 o'clock this afternoon, Carl sent us his answers to that survey, and, a lot of them are pretty well thought, or actually most of them are pretty well thought out. I mean, for me, I'm interested in kind of getting essential businesses open, and I think if we, tomorrow might be too soon for all of us to get our thoughts together, but I think Paul's comments and, if we had a day or two to kind of go through that, and that would be our only topic of discussion, Wednesday or Thursday of the week. I don't know how time sensitive this is, but of course sooner the better. But it's going to take me a couple of days to sort out, all the options here, and doing this in a safe manner. Thank you.
I agree, and that's why I had the clerk email individually the assembly members and kind of thought the same that this would be coming up. And we had that meeting last Friday. I didn't find out about it until like the day before, or maybe it was 2 days before. So I would be comfortable with seeing if maybe on Wednesday we could do something late afternoon. But I think this is time sensitive. And like I said, I don't know what the governor came out with. I see the manager emailed something right before the meeting started as well, and I think there's maybe some proposals for templates for fishing vessels, tenders, etc. And that proposal, some of the governor's ideas for opening up the economy and that input. Maybe we could have the manager interject his, he could fill us in on what that information was. But I think if there is another meeting tomorrow with the governor and mayors from the last conference of mayors and the last municipal league and the managers, that might be interesting to see what the governor has to say. But at that point, we wouldn't have had time to take any action. But and like you said, sent something out that I didn't see it till right before the meeting, so I haven't had time to read it. So, any other thoughts on a meeting date? Would Wednesday work for most assembly members? We need 4 for a quorum.
I can make that work.
I can make it work also. Could we do it about 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
I would like that.
That's good for me. Works for me.
That works for Taylor.
Sounds good from Jim.
Most likely 4 o'clock. Okay, so why don't we call for that, Debbie? I'll call for a special meeting the 22nd at 4 p.m. and we'll need to discuss the public's feelings on how to open up the economy, the business back in Petersburg, how to proceed. So, and I will report at that meeting, if there is a call with the governor tomorrow, what took place.
Mr. Mayor?
So, yes.
Yeah, what you got was, in fact, right before the meeting, was this boilerplated for fishing vessels, the one the governor talked about on that call. So they got it done. Yeah, the template, exactly. Do you want that on the meeting as well?
It makes sense to me, if it makes sense to the rest of the city. That would give the local fishermen, time to they can see what the governor posted on his website, I'm sure, and then provide some thoughts. And I don't know how much more thoughts will change the template, but this gives us a couple of days for people to digest the information that was put out by the governor and that will be put out during the phone call tomorrow. Steve, if that takes place, we can do it the same way we did the last time. And if there is something first, I'll let you know.
Sounds good.
Okay, so 4 o'clock on Wednesday, that sounds acceptable with most of December, so we'll move forward with that. Any more input on this discussion item? Okay, we'll move on to some of the members' comments.
I have one.
Okay, Member Finley?
Oh, it's small. It's more of a point of clarification. I just received a text asking, so this last thing goes into effect immediately, right?
8 a.m. tomorrow.
So, to open a child care facility, how are they supposed to mask every child in there? And if so, where are they supposed to get the mask by 8 a.m.?
Good question, Member Moore. I don't know, and I would hope I'm not going to be running around at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning because, it's really not much time for the public to be prepared. So I don't know if they answered your question. Maybe Carl can answer.
Yep.
So I would suggest that you ask the owner of the business to call me first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other city member comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Sandberger.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Hello?
Okay, I'm here.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second, Mark. No, I just wanted to briefly thank the community, as many of the members of the Assembly touched on earlier. The community is doing a really good job of looking out for our neighbors. I saw it today. Coming through town, I sent the stores and go buy groceries. And I want to truly thank everyone for all the efforts they are putting in. Nobody is comfortable going through what we're going through right now. And the patience we're showing from the other is critically important. Carl talks about it a lot during the call-in shows. Be kind and be empathetic. I'm very proud of our town right now for all this kindness and empathy it's showing toward their neighbors. We're all learning as soon as we go, and encourage all of us to kind of be those people to one another right now. We need it more than ever. And I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Assembly member comments?
I got one. Just a reminder that sounds like you have to wear a mask now, or you may be fined money that you probably don't have, which is unfortunate. But grab a towel, an old shirt, whatever, cover your face. Can't really afford to be getting hit with a fine right now.
Okay, thank you, Member Mohan. Any other Assembly member comments? If not, we will move on to recognitions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Member Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to recognize and thank everybody who is working at the grocery stores in town and the businesses that are remaining open. I mean, we talk about the folks that are in the incident command groups and the healthcare our providers, but I just wanted to shout out to the grocery workers, the managers who I talk to on a regular basis, and the guys and gals who are delivering groceries, filling orders. I mean, that's a really big deal. It's something that hasn't really happened to this extent in a long time. Post office seems to be going well. Shipwright seems to be, people have got it figured out. I just wanted to shout out to the folks who are kind of working under very extraordinary circumstances, and I think about them all the time. I just wanted to say thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Member Bucci. Any other Assembly member comments?
I have one.
Member Turnbull?
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize, I have a friend in town here. Her dad recently passed away of COVID earlier this month, and he lived out of state, and so I wanted to recognize her loss and the people in town who are dealing with being away from their families as we deal with this uncertain time. And in a way, that's all of us. And so I just wanted to recognize the difficulty of this moment and really settling in with the fact that this new disease is now the leading cause of death per day in this country. And so I do hope we continue to take it seriously and to support each other as we rise to meet this moment. The Instant Command Team has added a volunteer manager position. They are being proactive in working with the Share Coalition. And if you or anyone in this community want to be involved, you can reach out to the Instant Command email address and figure out a way to help support other people if you have capacity for that. And also if there is a need that you have, the community is really here for you. And so really, starting with my friend, recognizing the support that we can do on an interpersonal level and what we can really do for our community, now's the time to be showing up for each other. And I'm just grateful to all the people that have been doing that work and going above and beyond right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other Assembly member comments before we move on to like we might have touched on both of those once. So if there's no other Assembly member comments, we'll move to recognitions. Are there any specific recognitions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second? No one wants to adjourn.
Want to leave?
Seconded by Member Trumbull. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone, and we will see you at 4 o'clock. And if there's any other information that comes up about the phone call tomorrow or thoughts on our meeting, I will have the clerk email them to you individually. So thank you. Everybody, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.